All right, perfect. All right. Thank you for joining today's session. At Nonotuck, one of our guiding values is the belief that every person deserves to feel respected, valued, and supported, not only in the care we provide, but also in how we treat one another. Civility and kindness are at the heart of that. Civility means showing respect even when we disagree, listening to understand, and creating space for all voices to be heard. Kindness is the simple yet powerful choice to treat others with patience, compassion, and understanding. Together, these values build stronger teams, healthier workplaces, and more welcoming communities. Today, let's take time to reflect on how we can bring civility and kindness into our daily interactions, whether it's with coworkers, the people we support, or a larger community. By living out these values, we help strengthen the foundation of trust and dignity that Nonotuck is built on. So today we will have a few things going on. I do ask that, everybody kind of participate this time around. I know sometimes people are shy, but even if you are shy, if you can even type in the chat, it'll be greatly appreciated because I think we have some good discussions that we want to talk about today. But before we get into all that, I will like to pass it to Josh, the other co-chair of our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee, to discuss what we will be talking about or viewing in the video today.
Thank you, Nicole. So we're going to watch a video that was put together by Justice Perry, with sort of some staff input on what civility means to them in the course of their jobs and their lives. And hopefully we can have sorry, there was a very large truck that just went by my window. Hopefully we can have a fruitful discussion about civility afterwards. We have some prompts that we're going to share, and some statistics, and we can take it from there. But to start, we will watch the video right now.
When it comes to civility, it's really just about communication, and it's a conscious effort.
How you communicate, the language, the tone, the attitude towards one another is very important.
Having the courage to always be kind.
Fostering a culture of respect, not only in the way that you speak to people, the way you treat people.
Listening without judgment and offering support so that each person feels valued and understood.
It's about taking the perspective of another person and how they can kind of interpret what you're saying, how you say it, tonality, all of those things.
They're about seeing people, truly seeing them, and treating everyone with dignity and respect they deserve.
It's being able to communicate in a way that we feel is doing justice to everybody that we're representing.
Even if you don't agree, everybody's facing different challenges in their life and we might not see it.
So we need to be clear, precise, respectful.
Ensuring that everybody feels like their dignity is maintained in the workplace.
It's important that we're treating people with respect and kindness, and I always hope that I live up to that expectation on a regular basis.
People are not the same. We have to kind of learn and adapt to each one of them.
It's how we deal with it that makes a big difference.
And in doing so, you're creating a culture where people feel valued and are able to perform their best work.
If you kind of treat people respectfully and kind of are very honest about what you kind of need and kind of why you kind of need them, usually people will help you out a lot better than if you say, I need this right now.
Actions is really important. It goes hands in hand with your communications, not just civility at work, but civility in the community.
Civility is kind of just like a conscious decision. You kind of have to make the choice to make things more comfortable for everybody and to be that civil person. And it usually ends up benefiting you in the long run too.
For me, kindness and civility aren't just part of the job. They're the foundation of the relationships that make Nonotuck such a special place.
Thank you to Justice for that video. It was great work as usual. And I was sort of saying, for me, seeing everything sort of back to back like that, I noticed a lot of common themes coming up, but I'm wondering if anyone else in the group noticed some themes popping up after seeing that together. Janet.
Thanks, Josh. Well, certainly communication and that words matter, right? And not only words, but just our presentation, our tone and how we speak to one another. I think that was something that kind of I felt was a thread that was all the way through, just our presentation to folks, thinking about words. Words really do matter, and thinking about how you speak to people.
Okay, thank you. Deb?
Hi, everybody, and Justice and Josh and everybody. That was what a great video. Thank you. For me, I think what I was hearing, we talk about civility and kindness. It is your interaction and your approach with others, but what that does for us is it helps us as individuals experience the humanity of others despite our differences in values or opinions. And I think it helps us build understanding, which is so wonderful in the work that we do, but also just in our day-to-day interactions in life.
Nicole, do you have any questions or anything before I don't want to monopolize the floor?
No, you're fine. We can move on. Do you want to do the stats, Josh?
What are some ways that we can kind of learn from that video in terms of like what are some actions going forward where we can sort of make sure that we're operating with civility and kindness in mind in terms of our day-to-day operations as professionals here?
I think just being, oh, sorry, Carrie. You raised your hand. I'm not following the rules.
That's okay. I was just going to say, any perspective that you take, just having empathy for, yourself, for people, the people we work with, the people we serve, just taking that general approach with everyone.
That's great. Thank you. Diane?
Speaking respectfully, especially during times of disagreement, or if you have a different opinion on something, making sure that you're listening to the other person and not thinking about what you're going to say next is really important.
Yeah. Now, Gray.
I was just going to say, kind of taking a step back and evaluating how your own wellness is that day, mental, emotional wellness, before you feel like you need to respond right away to something. It may be influenced by your current state of mind, and just being able to reflect on your own current mindset and how that may play out in your response to someone or in your reaction to someone, or how you even listen to what people are saying.
Like if you have a small child and maybe they're keeping you up at night.
I don't know what you're talking about, Josh.
Rob?
What kind of resonated with me is just the concept of patience, like allowing people to kind of really think about the things and kind of not rush people. I know a lot of times when we go to our home visits or we have our own deadlines, or even in meetings like this, there's an end date, there's a stop point. So it's a rush to try to get everything in there. So just kind of allowing some patience and some time to allow people to kind of speak what they want and kind of work on their terms rather than just on your expectations.
That's great. Carla?
Just to note too, I think that many times small acts of kindness truly go a long way. And sometimes that can shift somebody's day with just talking about the weather or just seeing how things are, extending a hand for support in any way that you can. And that's in work or in real life, day to day. I think just small acts of kindness truly make the difference.
Great. Thank you. Ling?
Yeah. I think, before responding to like certain emails and stuff like that, it would be helpful if we reread them. Sometimes we do get emails from individuals that sound inappropriate in a way, right? Or at least how you interpret it might be different, right? So just kind of have an idea of like what you want to respond, and again, just rereading it, or perhaps ask someone else to read it just to make sure that it doesn't sound too bad. So
yeah, definitely being kind of thoughtful in general in terms of how we're talking and conveying information, I think is always good. Gray, is your hand up?
It is.
again?
Yeah, I just had one more
Okay.
thought. It is. I was just gonna say being aware kind of of our own implicit biases about people and making assumptions. I think we're hardwired to judge others, right? It's like a survival mechanism. We make assumptions about people, but really being able to reflect on whether those are truly accurate and being able to kind of approach conversations with, especially with people that we haven't met before, about where we think those assumptions are coming from, are stemming from, right? And how they're probably inaccurate, and kind of approaching certain conversations with the empathy that we've talked about and the open-mindedness about kind of, you know, going into those kind of conversations more mindfully.
Great, thank you. Janet?
Yeah, just kind of along that same vein, I thought about what Gray said about our knowing where we're at that day, kind of our own wellness check. And I think it's just giving people some grace that we don't know where they're at either. And so recognizing that I think someone in the video said, you know, not people bring things with them that day or in their lives that we are not aware of. And so giving people grace to that. And also, you know, reaching out to ask people if they're okay, you know, and having, if you're recognizing something like that in someone, a coworker or someone, just offering that support and opportunity for kind of maybe a little safe space too, and recognizing that in people.
Thank you. Nicole, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to read what Serena wrote in the chat, and she said, be mindful of your tone of voice when speaking to somebody when you have a different point of view, so it does not sound like an argument. So I think that was great as well. Thank you, Serena, for sharing.
Yeah, and I think something for me personally that I try and do is always recognize if there's a disagreement, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing. You can say that's a unique perspective I hadn't thought of, or something like that. Just as long as we're affirming each other and sort of kind of being at peace with the fact that we're all coming from different places, and it's fine and good to disagree, because we can meet in the middle and sort of come up with a good option between two viewpoints. Cole, do we want to do the prompts now?
Yes, I think that would be a great segue based on some of the responses that we received. So, okay, so we have a few scenarios for you guys, and we are interested in see how you guys will handle it. So, scenario one, a team member frequently interrupts others during meetings. So the question is, how would you address this behavior in a way that promotes civility without creating conflict?
Read it once more, please.
Sure, absolutely. So the scenario is a team member frequently interrupts others during meetings. How could you address this behavior in a way that promotes civility without creating conflict? And Diane was the first hand that went up. Correct?
Yes,
I know you
no,
had
it
I
was,
knew you had
yes.
the answer.
One idea, and it depends on the perspective, if you're the supervisor of this person or not, I think makes a difference. But say that you're not, or you're running the meeting, making sure that you have meeting rules set up ahead of time. So even if it's a meeting like this, that we're using the raise the hand function before you start to speak to help mitigate that interruption piece. From a supervisor's point of view, obviously I would have a separate meeting with that person to talk about that, behavior during a meeting of, what's the cause for the interruption or something on one-to-one. But other than that, that's how I would address it.
Thank you, Diane. Does anybody else have any perspective on that? Like coworkers, like how would you address that in a meeting if you weren't in a supervisory role? Thomas?
Hello, thanks for having this. Good question. So I think for me, what first came to mind was, and Diane alluded to it too as well, is make it separate from that moment. So if it's happening and it continues to happen, don't bring it up in that moment, especially if you're with other coworkers. It can make it awkward. But it's already going to be awkward when you kind of bring it up. And like, I think so. Like, I would take the person aside and just say, hey, you know, I always, want to get a word in, or I'm always thinking about what I want to say when somebody else is talking. Like, I have that same kind of characteristic, and maybe I'm noticing that when we have conversations. Can we both just be patient, listen to each other, and then respond. And see how that would go.
Thank you, Thomas. Rob, did you want to add something, or did you take it back?
I did. I was trying to think to articulate it best, but I think a lot has to do with the type of person that you're working with. Is it a guardian? Is it a family member? Is it another coworker that you're working with? And really just trying to identify the relationship may change, and really think about how you can navigate those complex relationships. I think a lot of times allowing an opportunity for them to speak at some point and trying to build that into your meeting plan can usually be pretty helpful. I know when I run meetings, I like to have an agenda and follow it. And even if somebody does interrupt, they can get their piece in and then just circle back to where you were and then just continue on in the agenda. And then being able to kind of talk to them after the fact and say, to identify why they feel the need to interrupt it, because it could be a whole bunch of things. Maybe they're not feeling heard, or maybe they're just super excited about something and they really just like, like if you're talking about going shopping next weekend or going on a vacation, it's just so exciting. They have to talk about it right away. So just kind of understanding, and it's really nuanced is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think Rob, actually, sort of piggybacking off that point, I have a friend who has ADHD, and he's constantly interrupting, and it's not because he's rude or anything. It's just sort of a symptom of his neurodivergence. So if we're considerate of these things, of the person interrupting as well as others too, that sort of allows everybody to be on a level playing field, because it might not be it might be something where it's something they can't control because of a condition with their brain.
So, anyone else have anything to add? I think I'm more of like, I would probably want to address it right then and there, but I would do it in a way just to make sure that the meeting or everybody's able to get their point across. So sometimes I feel like we may not be able to wait until the next moment or talk about it on the side. So I think you would just have to be crafty in the language that you use to kind of say, hey, we do want to see, here, we want to make sure that everybody's able to be heard. So if you can kind of be patient or just kind of reiterate the rules of engagement when people are meeting together. Victoria?
I was going to say something along that same line, and sometimes turning it back onto yourself, or I value everyone's input and words, but I need to finish what I'm saying before I forget what I'm saying. Or if they're interrupting someone else, just say all your words are valued, but I can only focus on one at a time. Or you could even, like someone that does struggle and wants to respond right away, get, like Rob was kind of saying, have like that agenda at the bottom, write down your question or response at the bottom, and we will make sure we have time to hear everybody.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next scenario. An employee sends an email with a harsh tone that upsets the recipient. What's a constructive way to respond, and how could this be prevented in the future? And if you need me to repeat it, I can.
just really quick, is that somebody sending a harsh email to you or to somebody else that you're like CC'd on?
Well, we'll say to you. Or it could be an email thread. We could go a bunch of ways. Or it could be an email thread and you notice it. You're like, ooh, you're clutching your pearls. So, but an employee sends an email with a harsh tone that upsets the recipient. And what's a constructive way to respond, and how could this be prevented in the future?
That's kind of what I was kind of talking about earlier. Put it in ChatGPT, ask it, make it nice before sending it, you know. Typically, I work with Sandal a lot, and, you know, most of the time, if you get, you know, certain emails that come in, and it just doesn't sound well. That's what we do. We kind of just, hey, what do you think? Like, we take a look at the responses that we write down, and like I said, sometimes you do put it in ChatGPT and, you know, give a constructive feedback, and before sending it. So that could work. I mean, it's an option. And obviously having the supervision with individuals too, and just making sure that their voices are heard, that we're taking their feedback before, you know, making any responses to them. So
thank you, Ling. Janet?
This is a hard one, right? Because sometimes we have had this conversation so many times with different people around, you know, that what we being careful about emails, especially, right? Or text. Sometimes you send them off and it seems like it's got a tone and it doesn't. So I know sometimes I've actually worked with folks and had them read it, sat with someone and said, can you read back that email that you sent? Can you read it to me, please? And sometimes just the exercise of reading it out loud, you understand, or they understand, whether it was, they'll stop themselves sometimes, right? They're oh, yep, I realized that had a tone, or that I shouldn't have said that, or and using it as an opportunity, kind of a learning opportunity in a way to talk about, well, what could you have said instead? Or how can we communicate in a different way? And always advising people, especially in those kind of communications, if you're feeling like your shoulders are raised when you're typing and the hair on the back of your neck is standing up in response, don't hit send, you know, and wait and give yourself some patience and work with someone else, or work with someone that you trust around, how does this sound? You know, I want to respond to this. I need your help. How would you interpret this, right? If you have concerns about that. But I think sometimes just mirroring that back and read that to me and see how it comes across. And that sometimes is an effective exercise in that.
Janet. Jamie?
Hi. I don't want to repeat some of the great things that other people have just said, but those were some of the things I was going to say. But I think the starting place for me is usually somewhere within emails can be interpreted different ways. What did you mean by that? Can you share with me, you know, what was your intention here? And then going from there.
I agree, Jamie. I'm like one of those people like, what? So what happened? Could you help me understand before I jump off the cliff? Rob?
Yeah, one of the things that I do myself personally is if I'm ever going to send an email, even if I'm not feeling my best, I still recommend it. Even if you aren't feeling your best on a day, run it through chat. Chat is really good about making it look perfect and cleans it up. And it can kind of, you can even ask it if it's having like a harsh tone or any of that stuff. And if you receive an email that feels a little harsh, maybe run it through chat, because maybe you might not be having a good day either, and maybe seeing something that might not be there. I know I've been on the end of that sometimes myself. But yeah, I'd highly recommend just using some additional resources that are outside of yourself sometimes can be pretty helpful.
Thank you, Rob. And yes, chat is definitely a great feature for that. So before I get to you, Amanda, I do want to go in the chat. Serena says, do not take it personal. Sometimes texts and emails come across differently than how one intended. Give other person the benefit of the doubt. So Amanda?
Yeah, so sometimes, I mean, emails and texts, they all come across in different ways and different tones. And depending on how you're feeling that day, it can be taken one way or the other. But a lot of times, if I receive an email or if I'm not sure how to respond to an email, I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to have an actual conversation with someone so that I know where both of us are. And for me, that's always been the easiest way to not feel like I'm coming across the wrong way and also really gauge how they are feeling. So I think establishing a different communication is sometimes the better route when dealing with those situations.
I agree 110%, Amanda. I just had this happen a couple of weeks ago with someone that I work with. And she sent the email and then she ended up calling me and she apologized. She said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I think my tone was off." And the funny thing was she was thinking one thing and I was thinking a totally other thing because I didn't think her tone was off, but it was nice that she was able to reach out and just say, "Hold on, this may have come across wrong," and just provided a little bit of clarity. So I was very thankful for that. So I do understand that, Amanda. Thank you all for sharing. Okay, I just have like two more scenarios and then we'll move along. Okay, two co-workers disagree strongly on how to complete a task. The conversation becomes tense. How can civility guide the resolution of this disagreement? Thomas?
Yeah, I think if it gets to that point, it might be time to step away for a little bit, take a break, reconvene, whether it's a short period of time or another day, depending on the conversation and how urgent the matter is. And also maybe bring in a third party as well to help, give their feedback, not necessarily mediate, but if they have to, whether it's a supervisor. But sometimes our passions get in the way, and sometimes we just need a quick timeout, for lack of a better word.
Taking space.
Thank you. Was that you, Ed?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay. I knew that voice. Taking space, good. Mediator. Anybody else have anything to add? Ed, Rob?
Yeah, I would say in that situation is I'd first try to find common ground between the two different ideas, because maybe there's some things that they can agree on, and then those can kind of be the building blocks of like, all right, let's start with these things that we do agree, like say somebody wants to go out somewhere and somebody wants to go to dinner, somebody wants to go to the park, but they both want to go somewhere. Let's start with that and then kind of build. I'm like, oh, it sounds like we both want to go do something. Let's try to, and then build up a different avenue of like, from that point, it's just boil it down to like, there's this common ground that people can kind of start at and then work from there. That's what I would do. It like obviously take space first, but you need cool heads to kind of get to that step, but that's what I would probably do.
Thank you, Rob. Jim?
I think, just making sure that everybody feels that they're being heard. Sometimes just because you're disagreeing with someone, they think that you're not hearing their point, but just kind of explaining your points a little bit more, maybe saying like, well, I disagree with that. Can you explain a little bit more your thought process? Just so that you both understand each other a little bit better, because then there might be something that you're missing that other person has thought of. So you thought your idea was the better idea, or your path forward was the better path, but you're not taking into account something else. So I think just having people kind of explain their thought processes, helps for clarity a lot.
Thank you. Ed?
I want to point out that what both Robert and James were both just talking about were collaboration, right? And Robert started with collaboration, and James kind of wrapped it into what is part of collaborative problem solving and those type of conversations. which is built around collaboration. Just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Ed. Would anybody else like to add anything before we move on? Okay, last scenario. Here we go. A colleague consistently fails to acknowledge others' contributions or ideas. What strategies can be used to encourage recognition and respect in the situation?
Can you read it once more, please, Nicole?
Absolutely. A colleague consistently fails to acknowledge others' contributions or ideas. What strategies can be used to encourage recognition and respect in this situation? Rob?
Yeah, this is a tough one, but I'd lean back on kind of trying to be focused on the gratitude aspect. And even if the person presenting or taking credit or whatever, that's not my coworker. If that's a coworker doing that, I would even kind of go out of my way and be like, hey, I saw that you did a lot of work for this presentation, or you did a really good job solving this crisis, and kind of just acknowledging, like, give that person that one-on-one affirmation that somebody does see the efforts that you're putting in. And I know that people have done that for me throughout my career here. And and it's been very, very meaningful to me when somebody kind of goes and gives me that one-on-one at like credit, I guess. But that's something that you can do even if you're not part of the if you're not a trainer, if you're not the boss of it. But it's something that can be really, really helpful, and something that I really has helped me a lot.
Thank you, Rob. I agree with you, Rob. I think a little bit goes a long way. It's almost like when you see somebody or somebody sees you and they say, hey, you have a nice shirt on. Like, you're like, oh yeah, thank you. And it probably meant nothing to them to say it, but it meant everything to you, right? So I think just being mindful of when we see people doing good things or they're accomplishing certain things, it's always nice to be recognized. So great. Thank you guys for participating in my scenario segment of this civility and kindness event. Josh, do you want to move along?
Yeah. Nicole, do we have this is it except for the statistics, right?
Say that one more time, Josh.
This is it except for the stats, right? And then we're done.
And then we're doing polls. Rob's going to end it with the
yeah.
polls for everybody. Yep.
Okay. So I'm just going to share some statistics to sort of wrap up here about the importance of civility in the workplace. If I could just pull them up. Okay. According to a survey of 800 managers and employees across 17 industries, nearly half of workers who experienced incivility deliberately reduced their work effort or spent less time at work. According to research shared by the National Institutes of Health, people in civil workplaces are more productive, creative, happy, helpful, and healthy. According to something called social, 60% of younger workers feel they work in a kind environment, but 74% say they want kindness in the workplace. Teams in kind workplaces are 30% more motivated and have 64% higher job satisfaction. According to Gallup, business units with highly engaged employees see 21% higher profitability, 75% higher productivity, and 68% lower turnover. And according to research on employee recognition, simple acts of kindness like thank you notes or praise can improve productivity by as much as 90.9%. So civility just it helps all of us. It's not just a one-way street. It's a reciprocal relationship. Civility and kindness is.
Thank you, Josh. And Joe wrote in the chat, I read a meme recently and would like to go back to kindness. You, Joe.
All right, so I was typing it in because you are a much more eloquent speaker than I am, there, Nicole. But it was this really hit home for me because so here's what the meme says. It says, they asked, why is it important to be kind? I said, because we walk past hundreds of people every day and none of them wear signs that say, I'm grieving, I'm exhausted, or I'm barely holding it together. But they're everywhere. Kindness might be the only softness they receive today.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that, Jill. And that is the truth. Okay. Ed.
So I don't have the answer to this right now, but I'm going to find the information. And what I'll do is when I find it, I'll send it to you, Nicole, and you can maybe send it out to everyone. Okay. It's related to what we're talking about. It's a video about dogs. It's very educational, and it's also around survival and how there's a change in thought and perspective, right? Your mind frame on what it means to survive if you are civil and positive and productive, right? Like that pathway versus fear and aggression and might meets right. And they use this example of a wild dog breed to make this short in explaining that theory of thought and that mind frame. And it's not that long. Like I said, very enjoyable and educational, and it goes right to the core of what's behind the foundations of understanding and positiveness and civility and that approach versus maybe fear, aggression, structure, or power per se. Mostly aggression, but I will get that. It's to you, Nicole.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, before we wrap it up, any final thoughts? I'd just like to thank everyone for coming today and participating and being vocal and utilizing the chat and being respectful and being civil and being kind to one another. We are going to have Rob run a quick poll. I think there's only like 4 poll questions. If you guys would be so kind to answer them. And before we do that, Rob, let me check in with Tammy. Tammy?
Hi. Because we're wrapping up, I just wanted to shout out to my team in the Berkshires for the kindness that they've extended to me recently with a family emergency that I've had going on. And without their constant support and help, it would have been a much harder thing to do. So the kindness and the civility and it goes a long way in the workplace. So just wanted to give that shout out.
All right. Thank you, Tammy. Anybody else want to do shout outs? I think this is actually pretty cool. I'd like to shout out Con Street North. I have been a program director for a few months now, and everybody's been pretty much welcoming. So I do appreciate everyone on the Con Street North team. So that's my shout out.
I already said this, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you to Justice for your great work on the video. And also thank you, Nicole, for landing the plane with me yet again. And thank you to everyone. I'm always just so happily surprised at just the things that we say and the things that we do in these meetings. It's great, and I really do appreciate everyone's input when we do these events. We couldn't do it without you guys, so thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Couple more polls coming. And while that's happening, if anybody else, feel free to do your shout outs. We welcome them. Josh says, shout out to Rob the pole master too.
We have 4 total polls, so I'm kind of trying to break them up so people don't just get bombarded with all of them all at once. But
thank you, Rob.
yeah, if you want to go back and think about the polls, they're just going to be posted in the chat, so you can just click on them and adjust them. And if you're interested in looking at the findings, the results will be posted in there as well.
Carla says, shout out to you all for putting these discussions together. Thank you, Carla. All right. Last one coming up, right, Rob?
Yep, right now. Just
perfect. All right. Thank you all for joining today. It was much appreciated, very insightful, and I hope you guys have time to get out, maybe take your wellness hour, enjoy the weather. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day.